All right, greetings. So turn up the video speed. So here's the precursor question before we get in the meat of the subject. Is 13 years enough time for you to learn a trade, to learn to be a doctor, to learn to be a plumber, electrician, to learn to be something the world needs that actually pays? Is 13 years enough? Because from what I've seen, they have your kids in K through 12 education for 13 years, and your kids are good enough to do what after 13 years? What, flip hamburgers, stock dollar store shelves? You got to go to some other finishing school and pay lots of money to do it to actually get the education you should have gotten that 13 years. Now, I want to go over this. By the way, Freedom Phil, like and subscribe. Let's get into it. And remember, turn up the video speed. I want to point out how ways we could change the educational system to where by the time they're done with that 13 years, they would actually have a real trade. And maybe even the way we could be paying off the national debt and you could be paying off your house at the same time if you do it at home. Yeah, Freedom Phil, like, subscribe. Let's get into it. I look at this situation and I see a lot of classes that are just absolutely useless, like stuff that you learn that you're forced to deal with, learn that when you get done with all of them said and done, it does you no good, absolutely no good in life. And why are we forcing kids to go through these classes? Well, it's just part of the educational system. No, we're doing it because basically the educational system is a way to employ a bunch of people that otherwise wouldn't have a job in reality. Oh, that's horrible. Teachers are so special. Okay. You think they're that great? Your kid gets out after 13 years and they're good enough to flip hamburgers, stock dollar store shelves. Well, let's take it a step further. Go take a look at what each state costs. It's public information, what each state cost per year for K through 12. And the state I'm currently in, I think it's like $9,000 per kid for times 13. The state I grew up in, it's $17,000 per child per year. So you took either one of those numbers and times it by 13 and you put that into the S&P, leave it there for 30 or 40 years, you've got a retirement ready to roll. Like how many millions of dollars? Don't believe me? Go use an S&P calculator. I expect better results for that much time and that much money. So when you look at some of these classes they have, like for instance, look, I like music, but do I think it's necessary that you know how to blow a brass horn? No. No, it's absolutely useless for, I'd say, God, is even 1% of the population employed after band class ever making any money? Nope. It's just a nicety. And so that time would better be spent learning how to be a plumber or maybe some sort of, computer coder. What about art class? Look, I'm going to be real. When I was born in 1980, so kind of in the 90s. How many of you had that experience where either you made an ashtray when you were a little kid for your parents in the claymation part, or you were older and making a bong in high school? And you know the teacher knows what it is. And you're like, oh, it's a vase. That's a very odd vase there, son. They knew what it was. I didn't do it. One of my friends did. It was hilarious. I don't even know if it was safe to use it because of the glazes. But it was a complete waste, absolute waste of time. And, how about an HVAC or, someone who's learning the pre-things to become a doctor or something? Yeah. Then we got history class. Look, I understand history is important, but is it functionally useful to anybody for the most part, unless you're playing Jeopardy? Just being honest. I had state history, and the reason I failed that state history twice was not because I didn't know the information, is because they had this stupid art project at the end. Well, your job is to draw a map of the state and then put, where certain things are. Really? Really? And I'm like, well, can't I just go to a gas station and buy a map and then you ask me to point where these places are and I point them out? No, you have to do the project. Wow, that was a great use of our time, wasn't it? Huh? You could be learning to be, I don't know, maybe a lineman. You ever seen what a lineman makes for a living? We need people to build houses, cars, mechanics, all this stuff, and yet they're wasting their time on that. I'm not, I think math and science is important. I really do. But most people, after a certain level of math, they never really use that upper level math again. I know some construction workers will say, well, I use this math for this. But these days, much like another category we're going to come in, much like translator apps, is it really necessary? There's probably an app coming out where you could be like, okay, just punch these dimensions in and it'll tell you exactly what you need to do. Oh, wait, it's called a square footage calculator. Like the problems we used to have to, know how to do. And I hate to say it, people say, well, you're dumbing down the people. Are we? Or are we just, instead of wasting those precious years, we're going to get it better? And the next one would probably be the languages. You know, do you really need to learn a foreign language? Well, if you're going to move to another country, yes. But you could learn that at home. You really could. So yeah, there's even more time. So you start cutting out all this stuff that's frankly not useful, and you replace it with trades. Like we need mechanics, we need plumbers, electricians, HVAC guys. We need people that are going to be doctors. We need all sorts of things. Yeah, and we don't have them. And you know why? Because people aren't skilled for it. And then when you get into the really real world, of course, people are young and horny and dumb, illogical, horny and dumb. And then they end up, having a kid, and they might be working dead-end jobs for a while. I mean, heck, I'm a truck driver when I choose to work. Pretty brainless, to be honest. That's hard work. It's anything but hard. You just sit on your backside all day and listen to a podcast or a audiobook while you travel the country. No rent, no bills, no problems. I think we should be training people how to drive trucks for the time being. Because if nothing else, like let's say you don't want to be a plumber. Well, knowing how to do plumbing is always a guaranteed job, in the same way that truck driving for probably another 5, 10, 15, 20 years or more will probably be a guaranteed job, because we need somebody meat in the seat to do it. So it's a backup plan. Instead, these kids are woefully unprepared, and then bada bing, bada boom, they decide to make a choice to have a child. And it is a choice. Don't act like having a kid's, it was an accident. Oh, crap. Yeah, because what did you, accident? What did you slip on ice and your dick went into her? Just like you ladies, I mean, birth control, it was an accident. No, it was a choice not to use birth control and have lots of happy, joy. I'm just being real with you. So if you had a system where these people were already ready and prepared for society, they'd be doing far better. And science, by the way, I really do love science. I love it. But I found most people, nobody cares about science. Most people barely use any sort of scientific thing. And the things that they actually know about are the things that actually apply to their day-to-day job. Like I remember I was working with a tire guy one time. It was when I was trucking. Just a quick story. And he's like, the thing I don't understand is, why is it that, we have to let out the air pressure, when it gets hot and cold? And I explained it. I said, well, because part of oxygen is liquid. And as the heat goes up, the liquid expands and makes the tires have higher pressure. And especially if you have super singles, you got to worry about this. And if you happen, and when it gets cold, that water condenses just like ice. And so it lowers the pressure. So you're down in Texas, and the tires, they get warm. It's also hot down there. So you put in all this air pressure. But by the time you get up back north during the winter when it's snowing, you get up there and it turns out, well, now your tires, you need to add some air. And the problem is that sometimes people add air in the north and forget to let a little air out in the south. And then they end up blowing a tire because they had it just right for the north. So, something simple like that. That guy didn't even know that. But you know what he did know how to do? He knew how to put tires on, and he got it done. Now, I know a lot of people would say, well, you'd be lowering the collective education of the American public. Not really. I would say, let's just make it something you can do for free. I'm currently listening to a bunch of audiobooks, and I'm slowly getting to the point where the maximum speed on the listenability is 300. Not 2 times, 3 times. So I'm at 285 right now. So I'm almost at 3 times the speed. And I'm getting used to it. And I started thinking to myself, and this is not a new idea, well, why couldn't I listen to history? Like, hey, whatever state history, whatever country's history. What about a lot of other information that you're going to need to know, like understanding the basics of plants and whatnot? Why can't we do most of this stuff online? We can. Why don't we make it more accessible? Like, I'm sorry, there's some things that, when it comes to teachers, we really don't need you teaching this. We need a handful of programs that can teach people. And if you want to learn some of this stuff at home, more power to you. I mean, I'd argue a better use of your kids' time wherever you're at, if there actually happens to be stuff growing in the wilderness, is a little bit of survival training. You're like, survival training? Are they ever going to get a job? No, but if everything ever hits the fan or they're stuck in the wilderness, hey, that's edible, that's edible, that's edible. That's actually productively potentially useful. I mean, I don't know if you've seen the cost of vegetables lately, but it wasn't so long ago, a head of cabbage at Walmart was about $1 a pound. Now it's back down to 88 cents. Ooh, feeling better. In town here, because we're in a small town, it's the last town before basically a huge paradise area, $1.50 a pound. So actually knowing that could tactically do things better for you. And by the way, I wouldn't force anybody to want to learn that technology, but making it easier for people to learn that. Same thing with gardening. Hey, here's how you grow what you can grow here. Here's how you can it. And when it comes to those things, there are no shortage of YouTube videos and other things, but making it easier for people to access knowledge. So let's just say, hypothetically, you wanted to borrow some money from the government for some reason, or you wanted to get some government programs. Maybe you should have to show that you actually know American history, or you get a better, before we let you in, before we certify that you are someone that's actually a real American. Like maybe you've given up a little time and donated time to help clean up park trails or rebuild bridges in a national park, or you've actually helped things clean up your town. You did something, so you got some social credit in some respects. You show that you actually care. And by the way, if you think that's crazy, go back during the Depression, and it's exactly what they did. They had all these young men. These young men had nothing going on. There are so many things. If you drive this country, a lot of them are falling apart at this point. That what was it? The Conservation Corp, I think it was called, that they built. And you want to know something about that? What it did for America? It was a lot of people a job, a purpose. It taught them trades, and it turned out that those people loved their country because they actually gave some time for it. So in the same respect that, and by the way, a lot of those people, they didn't have anything over an 8th grade education. So, I'm just being real about it. And they built most of America. So maybe before we just lend people money, because I think one of the more toxic things, and just kind of a knock on college, when college was cheap, is before the government got involved in it. Well, wait a minute. No joke. You go and look at how people used to work. And I had this conversation with a guy at Laramie Scales with it was a DOT guy. He's an old guy. He's a good guy. He's kind of a curmudgeon, but he's an okay guy. And he's like, well, part of college isn't just the career, the knowledge. It's a finishing, making people a better person. No, that's what your parents for. That's what your religion, if you happen to be religious, for. Or you don't have to be religious, but you know what? That's what society's for. You teach your kids the ways of your people. And so you could be learning all that stuff, philosophy, like with college and all that. You could learn all that stuff at home. You could even have online testing, for these things. And let me put it like this. Now, how would I say, because I said this earlier, how would I pay off the debt, or at least work towards paying off the debt, and you could pay off your house? Well, I got to be real. If you incorporated some of these mathematics, science questions, and whatever questions we think are actually truly necessary for your children to be doing better into some video games, some other things like, hey, a loot box. Hey, you want to open it up? Answer that math equation in this much time. You'd see how quickly those kids would be great at whatever math you wanted to learn. If you don't believe that, watch kids do combos. And for those of you guys remember, some of you older folks like myself, you remember the original Contra game? How many of you still remember the combo for that? Or stupid tricks that were really hard to do, but real button pushers that you had to do, but there was some special thing that you saw on a video or you heard about, and you're like, oh yeah, you do this and that and that and that. And then you're like, and you think about it as you're an adult. That was actually kind of complicated. See, I don't believe your children are dumb. I just believe they're not being properly stimulated to actually get them to know anything. And so they could be learning at home. And this is where we get back to the whole thing of pay off the debt and pay off your house. Well, like I said earlier, the state I grew up in is $17,000 per child per year. What if you educated your children at home? Like, hey, all you grandparents, we want grandkids. We want the grandkids. Okay, you educate them at home. And if you think that's crazy, oh, we can't do that. Talk to some elders in some of these First Nations places, Well, it's kind of beautiful. They're like, no, we don't want our language and our cultural ways to die. So the elders step up, and they're teaching their children the way. And guess what happens? They learn to speak their language. They learn about the plants. They learn about the things because the people stepped up. And both parents can work then. Both parents are working. There are people like, well, people are going to cheat the system. Okay, well, let's do it like the driver's license. You want to get your driver's license? Well, you got to go take the test in a public facility. And you read the book, you study the book, you learn other things and then you go pass the course and you go out and do it. And how are you going to cheat it if it's just a government facility? Instead of having these big schools and all that. And you know what, to be honest, I know that not everybody's going to be able to have homeschooling like that, but is that really true? Don't we have enough people to actually do it ourselves? And if that's the case, let's say for every grade that you graduate on realistic things, and even give them a bonus if they're getting a trade, if they're already getting certified in a trade, like, hey kids, here's how you do PECs. This is ABS. This is a slip T. This is a vent T, a sanity. Like you're learning this, and then you're learning, oh, this is this type of electric. This is how you run wiring. Because I'm going to tell you right now, other countries where they don't have the luxuries that we do, their kids at 10 years old are more well put together than a lot of 25 to 30-year-olds in America. Oh, I went to college, but I still can't find myself out. You don't have that luxury in a lot of other countries. So the way I look at it is every grade that your kid graduates, well, half the money that would have went normally for that state, or just come up with a basic number, half of it goes to the parents and the other half goes to pay off the debt. And, for those that say, well, how much money could it really be? The kind of astonishing thing about America, I looked up the numbers, and it's $820 billion we spend on the military. And we get some goddamn results for that military. Not to say there aren't some people really, really pinching from the pot, like a $700 screwdriver. We need to get rid of that crap too. But yeah, the K through 12 education system in America is $850 billion. And for those that don't know how much a billion really is, do you think $1 million is a lot of money? Well, imagine that times 1,000. How many Twitters could you buy for $1 billion? Not bill. Now how many? No, not how many billions? No, I screwed that up. But you get my point. I mean, for $850 billion, how many Twitters can you buy? There's a good question for you. So what I'm getting at with this is that we spend so much money on this bloated, is the word corpulent, education system where it doesn't get results. Your kids are functionally useless after 13 years. Get rid of the useless courses. Maybe even have the option you want to teach at home. Maybe hey, here's a wild thought. What if your kids graduated 2 years every year or 3? Like you got a Wunder kid. And let's just go with a simple number of $16,000 per student per year in that particular state. Well, $8,000 per grade that your kid can prove that they know, times 2 is 16 grand you get, and the other 16 grand goes to paying off the debt. And then let's say it's 3, that's 24,000. Could you use that to pay off a house relatively quickly? I can tell you right now, you go to a lot of these states, Midwest, South, like places like Texas, all over the country, just get on them, Google Maps, look up a house. Said it before in other videos, I'll say it again. You look it up, you can find cheap real estate all over the country. You can get houses. I found a place the other day for $39,000. It was a 3-bedroom, 2-bath. Yes, it's an old house, but it's a house and you own it. And that'll lead to another video in the future. Hey, for people that think you got to have a brand new house, let's say my $39,000 house burned down and the interest you're paying per year for your $500,000 palatial estate, how many times could I buy that same house I just bought over 30 years? You didn't really think about that. But the point of it is that we leave our children in the care of people, and really that's it. It's a daycare system. So the parents can go out and work. And I just expect better results. And look, I got to be honest with you. This is just my thoughts on it. I don't have kids. So I don't really have any skin in the game in the future and all this other crap. I just think it should be angering to everybody. Just like when you spend this much money overseas on aid and you still have potholes on the roads in your country. You have homeless people that are struggling. You have people that can't find a decent paying job. You spend how much over there, but you can't fix the problems over here. And that's the way I look at the school system. We have gotten so used to not questioning what is. Well, we get this propaganda over the course of time of these teachers are sacred. Oh, they're angels and oh crap. A lot of them are just people that couldn't get a real job doing something better. Now, there are people who really love kids, but I don't think, let me ask you a question. It's just like trucking. I love traveling. I love doing van life. And I love trucking, but they pay me a lot of money. Do you think I'd be moving freight? Because when my people stop moving, I haven't come 3 years because I haven't bothered to work. If my people stop doing what we do, the world starves after about 2 weeks. In the same way, if they weren't paying me, do you think I'd do that? How many of these angel teachers, if they stopped paying them, do you think they'd show up for work? Huh? The answer is no. They do it for the money. They do it, maybe they feel some sense of pride, but for God's sakes, for that much money and that much time, your kid should at least be able to walk out into the real world and get a real job. And I'm just saying, like, they should be able to be a plumber, electrician, a coder. They should be well on their way to being a doctor. This idea that we have such low standards for what we call education while paying even more, 30 billion more than we pay for the military, 820 for the military, 850 billion for K through 12. I just think we deserve better than this. But like I said, I don't have a dog in this fight in the long run. If you care about your kids, yeah, start doing something. By the way, this is also part of the reason I say, for all the people say, oh, I pay taxes, and they have like 3 kids in school. No, you don't, because that public education ain't free. But that's a whole separate conversation. This is Freedom Phil. Like and subscribe. And like I always say, turn up the video speed, because why wouldn't you listen to things at a faster pace? You got things to do. I got things to do. Speaking of that, dog kind of wants some fries, so take it easy.